Utah at Colorado. It's a Big 12 matchup. Colorado is 11.5-point favorite at home. The over-under set at 46.5 for this one. Nobody's been a bigger supporter of Colorado this year than I. I have just been
Hmm.
I have every time somebody said they can't do it, Mark. There's no way this team can go to a bowl game. They're left for dead. I said no, 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 no. Wait, wait, just wait. And I kid, of course. I was one of those people that I thought that 7 wins this season would be an outstanding season for Colorado, right? And really, by all metrics and measuring sticks that you want to use in college football in the modern era, that would have been a good season for Colorado, considering what they came from a couple of years ago. But now is the time in which I have to eat some crow. And I have to say that Deion Sanders has done a fantastic job with this team. And look, all the problems aren't fixed, guys. We're going to go through some of the stats and things like that for this Colorado team. Everything's not fixed. It's not the work is not done, right? Um, but I tell you what, this is what you call making lemonade out of lemons when life just gives you tons of lemons, right? And you got to tip your cap. The defense has showed up for Colorado in certain spots where that just didn't happen last year. It just didn't happen last year. So I just want to tip my cap to all the Colorado fans, everybody who's hung in there. We even had some fans come on the show and comment back to us in the beginning of the season after the Nebraska game, and they said, "Hey, you're right." They said, "Hey, you were right. You were right about that." Well, I'm here to tell y'all. Let me repay it to you. Y'all were right. Colorado's a little better than what I thought. So let's jump into this thing. This is a big deal because here Colorado sits, Mason, not far off from being able to play for a Big 12 championship game and a possible playoff berth, dude. So
Yep.
this game has serious magnitude to it, and Utah comes off of a very disappointing last-second loss last week to BYU, 22-21. Of course, BYU marches down the field there in the fourth quarter and kicks a field goal. Really some sour attitudes about that game. That was one of the ones we got yelled at about this week. I really can't even point out what everybody was so unhappy about what we said about the game. But with all that being said, here we are talking Utah football again. Um, this is a defensive led football team, Mason. And let's look at some of the stats. And if you've not been under a rock this season, then you already know that. I mean, these offensive stats for Utah are absolutely putrid. And last week we saw Rose, wasn't it Rose, Brendan
Yep.
Rose or something?
Hmm.
He came out and played quarterback instead of Isaac Wilson. Um, you make what you want to make of that. I mean, this offense didn't do a whole lot better. It was a good second quarter there for Utah as they scored 21 points, but certainly not some kind of offensive showdown or showcase for this Utah offense. Really bad at red zone touchdown rate. Really bad at third down conversions. Scoring offense as a whole. There's not really a whole lot to glean. Look, this team can run the football a little, right? 75th in the country rush yards per game at 150.44, 4.33 average yards per carry for the season. Rush plays of 10 plus yards, 73rd in the country with 43. Those are not amazing numbers, but if this Utah offense has got one thing to hang their hat on, it's that they can run the ball somewhat effectively. And typically, Utah, when they match up against these Big 12 teams, they have an advantage on the line of scrimmage. That's just been the case pretty much every game that they suit up over the last few years, honestly, under Whittingham. Defensively, it is another story, right? Really good on third down defensively. How good? First in the country, that good. 23.85% third down conversion allowed this season. So that'll let you know a lot about this defense. Does not allow offenses to get out in front of the sticks and stay in front of the chains. Um, you know, eh, and honestly, I mean, this has been the backbone of this team. This team wouldn't wouldn't be a team that had any chance of going bowling without this defense, right? Let's talk about Colorado for a minute. I mean, Utah, there's just really not even that much to talk about. They're just not that great. But defensively, they will present a problem for this Colorado offense, and we'll kind of get into that. Colorado offense has been really, really good slinging the ball around the yard. And this is kind of what I was talking about in the intro to the video. Not everything is fixed for this Colorado team, right? I wouldn't say that everything is fixed. 132nd in the country rush yards per game, 131st in the country rush yards per carry. Um, Not good at running the football. Rush plays of 10 plus yards. Mason, I don't know that there's another team in the country that we can say this. And I do a lot of these stats. I do all of our stats for these videos, or I would say 95% of them. And I don't think I've seen a team have more pass plays of 20 plus yards than they have rush plays of 10 plus yards this season. I don't know if I've ever seen that of any team. So this is kind of rarefied air with this offense. 41 pass plays of 20 plus yards, which is good for 11th in the country. Rush plays of 10 plus yards, they've got 24 of them, and that's 131st in the country. So the opposite of explosive running the football and very much explosive throwing the football. And we'll see how that recipe works for this Utah team. Sacks allowed for Colorado, 29 this season. That's 120th. I mean, water wet, fire hot. Colorado offensive lines can't hold defensive lines off of their quarterback. I mean, these are one of the known elements of the world that we've gotten to know over just the last couple of years here with Colorado. Tackles for loss allowed, 56. That's 96 in the country. So you can kind of see what the trend is for this offensive line for Colorado. Have a hard time blocking folks. And luckily, Shedeur is mobile enough to be able to, I mean, he'll turn a 5-step drop into a 17-step drop if he needs to. Dude will run straight backwards, right, and to avoid sacks, and which one would argue makes it even harder on some of those, especially the tackles on the ends of that offensive line. But I digress. It's just not a great group offensively. Defensively is where this team has really taken a step in the right direction. Sacks gained this season, 9th in the country, Mason. They are top 10 in sacks. They are top 25 in tackles for loss with 64 of them, and top 30 in the country in turnovers forced with 16. So those metrics alone will allow your defense to be able to get teams behind the chains, right? And steal possessions away from teams. And whenever you've got a defense that maybe doesn't have the Jimmies and Joes at every position that you would want in your perfect world, those havoc stats are very, very important. And Colorado has figured out a way to increase those statistics for the havoc plays, and it's made the world of difference for this team. I would dare to say that the offense, the numbers looked very similar last year, Mason. By the end of the season, the rankings and stuff looked very similar to this. So I don't think a ton has changed offensively for this team. There's some playmakers on the offensive line that are very young, so there's some changes there, but they're not ready to change the look of this offense. Defensively is where this team's gotten so much better. All right, I'm going to shut my big fat mouth, and I will let you give us your take on this football game. What are you thinking as Utah travels to Boulder to face the Fighting Primes?
Well, I'll kind of start with a point you had kind of ended with there. Not a lot has changed for this Colorado offense, and similarly, not a lot has changed for this Utah defense. So when I look last year, this was a Utah defense that held Colorado to just 17 points. How is that, right? This is a really explosive passing attack for Colorado. However, Utah's defense is really good against the pass. Their completion percentage of quarterbacks that they're facing is under 50%. That's second in the country in quarterback completion percentage. They're giving up only 175 yards through the air per game. That's good for 18th in the country. This is a top 15 overall defense in the country. They're playing really well. And when you look at Colorado, they're still not able to run the football. they really struggle on 3rd and short when you would think at 3rd and 1 you just run the football, right? Not Colorado. Not unless Shador's taken off with it. Colorado's going to try to drop back and pass at 3rd and 1. I think that could get them into trouble in some situations where they feel like they're forced to go for it on 4th down and aren't able to connect against a stingy Utah defense. But then on the flip side, I also look at Utah's defense, not very opportunistic in the turnovers. They're 63rd in the country in interceptions and 128th in fumbles recovered. So to me, can Utah get a little bit of luck? And some of those interceptions and fumbles come down to luck. Does the tide turn a little bit? Do they kind of progress back to the median here and get some turnovers in this football game? I think that is a way that they will have to win it. Get some 4th down stops, play really sound special teams, and then they could fight their way back into this football game. Looking at Colorado, I mentioned that they haven't been able to run the football very well. Utah, by the way, against BYU, the majority of BYU's success against Utah came on the ground. They weren't BYU, which they've had a pretty good passing attack under Retzloff. They weren't that effective, minus a few big throws in that football game, particularly in the second half. So to me, I mean, I look at that matchup and I wonder if Colorado is going to have a little bit more success there going up against this Utah defense and their secondary. Now, I don't think that Utah has faced a team with as good of receivers as Colorado has. So that I do feel like Colorado is going to have some success. I really like, of course, I like Travis Hunter. I really like Theo Weiss in this football game. I like LaJohntay Wester and what he's been able to do. I like the tight end. Man, that guy's freaking impossible to get down, it seems like. So I've been really impressed with that. But Colorado has had some issues with special teams. I'd like to see them clean that up, especially going up against a Kyle Whittingham led football team that is very well coached. Special teams could come in or could kind of snake bite you, I guess, in this football game. This Colorado team, it still looks like a Big 12 defense, but we've seen some progress. I saw a good stop on 4th and goal against Texas Tech. That was huge. They're opportunistic. They are forcing some turnovers, but I'm concerned for Colorado this week in the fact that they're facing this tougher defense. Two similar defense that they faced this year were Kansas State and Nebraska, and they scored a combined 38 points in those football games, right? So that's good for 19 points each. I told you last year in this football game, Colorado was only able to just score 17 points in that football game. But the question is, can Utah's offense put up more than 24 points against Colorado? And that's where I have a question. Brent Keithy goes out last game. It seems like he's done for the season. He was obviously their biggest weapon. I really like what Dorian Singer has done this year. You throw it in his perimeter, and he's catching that ball and coming down with it. He's actually coming on as of late. I don't know that we've seen enough out of Brendan Rose to know really what he is going up against a BYU defense, but I think he was effective. I feel like he did enough in that football game to warrant giving him the start this week as well. He certainly didn't cost Utah the game against BYU. But I'm wondering if there are enough playmakers on this Utah team to affect Colorado's defense and score enough points. We haven't seen it all season outside of when Cam Rising was playing. Could this be a game where they put it all together? I'm not sure. And then bouncing back, I know I'm going back and forth a little bit here, but I'm also interested to see how Utah defends the screen passes by Colorado, because they have been running the screen passes very efficiently and effectively. That's a big part of their game, and that's really their passing. in those short yardage situations, they're passing, getting the screen plays, and it's almost it's almost like their run game. Whenever they throw those screen passes and all that, because Colorado doesn't have a run game. So that it's going to be a little bit interesting to me to see how Utah defends that. But yeah, I like Colorado in this football game. I don't think that they cover the 10 points though. I think this is a nail biter. I really feel like Utah's defense is going to pose some problems. And like I said, special teams is probably going to be a little bit of an issue here for Colorado. I could see some turnovers going Utah's way and making this a really messy football game. But I do like Colorado to win it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. And I'm liking the under, Mason. I like the under again. I know that's a low total there at 46.5. Vegas just would love nothing more than to shoo you off all these unders with these low numbers. But this is the year of the defense, man. I don't see an offense that's just like, just it doesn't matter what defense they play, they're going to score 40 points. I don't see that offense this year, and I don't see it necessarily with Colorado with the way that they're kind of a one-trick pony. I like Colorado to win the game, just like you. I don't like them to cover this spread here of a double-digit spread in a low-scoring football game. I think Colorado could end up winning this game, 27-10 or something like that. So I don't see this thing 27-13 maybe. I just don't see this one getting real high scoring, but I think it's going to be a really good football game. And it doesn't matter. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. It doesn't matter. You don't need style points here. Colorado needs to win this thing by 1 point. It doesn't matter. BYU just beat Utah by 1 point last week. Doesn't matter. Makes no bit of difference at all. Colorado just win, baby. And Colorado is well on their way for a really historic season. If you're new to the First and Long College Football Show, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button. Come join us on Thursday. We're going to have our betting show. I'll probably have a bet on this game on our best bets show. Like I said, it's every Thursday. It's called Between the Lines, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Come and join us and let us know in the comment section what your best bets are of the week. And on this video, let us know what your score prediction is for this one. I'd love to hear from you, Colorado fans and Utah fans. Colorado fans, you got to be feeling good and maybe probably a little nervous, right? Headed into this one. Big game that is not getting the national attention, but it is getting the attention it deserves here on the First and Long College Football Show. Thank you so much for watching.